don't trust me?
I don't trust you not because of the English thing. I don't trust you because I don't trust you. I don't trust you because I don't trust girls, to be fair.
Why?
Because my mother told me not to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. She said, you know, it's the sweet.
Girls like so bad. Never trust them. They're like.
Well, she told me, you know, cute guy like yourself, they're just gonna want to use you right here. Use you, you know, break your heart.
Oh, yeah?
Uh-huh. Yeah, so I just decided I became the heartbreaker instead, and so now I'm okay.
So now you're fine.
Now I'm fine.
You don't have to worry about that.
Oh, I'm so fine. As are you. Attraction is probably the single topic in game I get asked about the most, and with good reason. Because not only is attraction absolutely vital to making game work, but it's also one of the most fun and sexy parts of game. It's the part of game you see in every single Hollywood movie, and it's the part of game that makes the most sense given male psychology. But even with all this focus on attraction, most guys get it drastically wrong. In fact, most guys don't even properly understand what attraction is. So it's no surprise that guys mess it up in their games over and over and over again. So I'm going to tell you what attraction is, what attraction isn't, how to get it, and how to use it to make your game better. In order to explain attraction, I first want to start with an example that doesn't have to do with sex and relationships. Imagine you go to buy a car. While you're on the car lot, you see the flashy sports car with all the horsepower. You have the wind blowing through your hair. It seems very exciting to drive. You're probably drawn to that car. You're probably attracted to that car. It probably seems like a lot of fun. You may even get a little aroused by that car. However, for most people, they probably don't buy that car because it's two-seater impractical, it gets bad gas mileage, it costs too much, it's, you know, insurance will cost more, who knows what reason you don't. But usually you'll end up with a pretty nice car, but that has probably 4 doors and, you know, you can fit your whole family in it and you can actually store some things in it, haul some things in it, whatever. You'll come up with the more practical car that still is good enough, that still is attractive enough to you. Probably not gonna end up with the car that you just immediately turn your nose up at and you're like, oh, I would never want to be seen in that and it smells awful and it might break down next week, right? So you're gonna choose the car that's attractive enough, but also ticks the other boxes. If you understand that metaphor, you understand a lot about attraction. First thing about attraction is not a choice. You didn't choose to get excited by that sports car. You didn't choose to get kind of turned on by that sports car and imagine yourself driving it. It just happened, right? Value is acting on our subconscious mind, not on our conscious mind. We didn't rationally decide what we're attracted to. We just get an emotional response to certain things, and that is attraction. However, that emotional response is not always acted on, right? So while attraction is not a choice, acting on it is. And this is why, for example, there are married women that do not cheat with every high-value guy that comes along because they have a certain amount of loyalty or a certain amount of dedication or a certain amount of fear of the consequences of getting caught or whatever. So there is value and then there's acting on value. Also, there may be girls that are attracted to a certain guy, but they don't know him, don't trust him, etc. Or he doesn't fit in with their archetype of what they could see long-term, etc., etc. So there's a lot of reasons why a girl won't sleep with or get into a relationship with a guy who has value and is attractive to them. All right, so attraction, not a choice to feel it, it is a choice to act on it. The next question you might ask about attraction is, does attraction lead to sex, and is attraction necessary for sex? So the relationship between attraction and sex is very situational. There are some situations where attraction will lead almost directly to sex, and there are some situations where it really won't so much. Imagine a situation of rock star coming off stage, goes back to his dressing room, groupie goes and sees him and he has like 3 minutes between this and the next song. She might just jump on his dick without saying a word. That's sex out of just pure attraction or pure value in a sense. And you're gonna see as I speak through the rest of this video that attraction and value are very well correlated, right? So that's almost pure attraction sex. On the other hand, a girl goes on a date with a guy, goes to dinner, doesn't know him. It's just a normal scenario. It might take him several hours to sleep with her, might take several dates to sleep with her. She might not sleep with him at all, even if on the initial response, she's like, oh, he's kind of hot. Or even if maybe like an online date, she saw his photos and was instantly attracted to like the photos are good. That does not mean that if he messes up in the messages or she doesn't trust him or seems weird, that she's even gonna meet up with him. Okay, so attraction is definitely a big part of the equation, but it is certainly not the entire equation. And attraction typically is one of the early steps, especially in a cold approach or cold meeting type of a scenario, right? Because if you're meeting someone cold and there's no attraction, they won't stay long enough for those other steps to happen. So it usually is one of the earliest steps. And in that sense, it's oftentimes necessary for the other steps just because of a lack of opportunity if the attraction is not there. The same thing might not be the case in other scenarios. For example, in a scenario where you go to school with someone for years and years, you could be friends first and then develop attraction later if sort of a unique experience happens, or you're just put in that person's vicinity after knowing them for a while, you trust them, and then something happens that turns you on. Or for example, let's say someone, maybe you're in like middle school or high school, someone goes through puberty, they look different. All of a sudden, you went from having comfort with them first, they were your friend, and now all of a sudden you're attracted to them. These things can definitely occur, all right? But in a cold approach or cold meeting scenario or online dating scenario, usually you need to lead with attraction, because if you don't have attraction, they won't stay long enough for the rest. So what about sex without attraction? Can that happen? Yes, it can. I'll give you some scenarios. Scenario 1, prostitution, right? That is sex without attraction, right? Or technically a prostitute could be attracted to you, but that's not the reason why she's in that scenario and why she would be having sex. The point is that's sex without attraction. Similarly, if a situation was a pure gold dig situation, a girl's purely using a guy for money in a non-prostitution way, that also would be sex without attraction. Also, you could look at certain sort of arranged marriage scenarios in some cases that would end up being sex without attraction. Now, I know there are arranged marriages that end up with attraction at some point later on as people get to know each other. There are some where people have some say in it and they happen to be attracted. And there are some where people just get lucky and they're put together with someone they're attracted to. But it is quite possible in that scenario that you would have sex in a family and a relationship without a whole lot of attraction. You're doing it for a lot more practical reasons, practical factors, maybe social pressure, maybe utility, et cetera, et cetera. So there are these situations where you can definitely have sex without a lot of attraction, but they're not the most common scenarios in the modern Western world, and they're not ones that are repeatable without the utility of some other resource like money or a family situation or something like that. So what leads to attraction? Well, having attractive qualities. What are attractive qualities? Well, I've let this slip a few times by accident because they're just so intertwined. Attractive qualities are those that are associated with value. But let's go one step further. What is value? What are valuable traits? And if you were to look in the 21st century at what logically should seem to be valuable, attraction is very confusing for you. Because you would think that a guy with a good job who makes money should be attractive because that's high value. It would make sense. You would think that a guy who fits in with society and is very politically correct should be attractive because that seemed to have some value, et cetera, et cetera. However, what matters for attraction is not what would have value in the 21st century. It's what would have had value in our evolutionary environment, which could be something like 2,000 years ago, or even something like 2 million years ago, because, we evolved from apes and hunter-gatherer villages and all these different things like that. All right. So it's the things that would have been valuable on that animal level or in those hunter-gatherer villages where most of our evolution occurred. Because while we have evolved technologically and we live in a very different world, our genetics have not evolved to anywhere near the same degree. And this is why you'll see things like the guy without a job who has tattoos and rides a motorcycle being more attractive to women or having an easier time sleeping with women than a highly paid like accountant or doctor or lawyer might in some cases. It's because there's that evolutionary value, that primal value that is superseding the logical societal value. Remember again, attraction, not a choice, coming from an emotional place. So it is inherently acting on our emotional mind, our evolutionary mind, not our logical mind that is well calibrated to the 21st century. So what are some of the traits that would have been attractive qualities, high value qualities in that evolutionary environment? This is a not exhaustive list, but I think it's a pretty good summary. Things like being a leader, being willing to be confident to take a lead, and also when you lead, how do people respond to you? Do people follow your lead? That's a good high value trait. General confidence. Because in an environment where you lived in a small tribe your whole life and everybody knew you, if you were overconfident, you'd get that beaten out of you real fast. So the fact that you can walk through the world with confidence shows that you've had stature, you've had status in that tribe all this time growing up. And that's an honest signal, something very hard to fake, that says that you're a competent individual that is high value. Along similar lines, social proof, having a lot of friendships, having a lot of resources, connections. Because in those tribal environments, it's very hard to survive alone. You need that teamwork. You need the tribe to have your back. If the tribe doesn't have your back, kind of lost alone and maybe dead to the world. And especially for a woman raising a child in that environment, she needs that support system. So if you have that strong social support system, you're going to do very, very well. Beyond that, a couple other obvious ones, just physical attractiveness. Being in good shape, being able to perform physically. Very, very useful. Obviously, in that environment where we evolved, being able to outrun a predator, being able to kill an animal so your family can eat it, these things mattered a whole lot more than they do when most of our work is done at a keyboard. So that's clearly very important. The other thing is general competence. If you are good at what you do, if you seem to be messing up all the time, whether it be at hunting buffalo or at operating a car or a computer or little social faux pas, whatever it is, if you're constantly messing up, you look incompetent, you look like you don't have a lot of survival value, and either you're passing bad genes along to the kid or you're gonna raise the kid not in the best way, so you're not providing a lot of reproductive, high-value traits in that evolutionary environment. So to come full circle, what is attraction? Attraction is the motive power, the driving force behind game. It's the thing that makes it work. So I'll give you another metaphor to make it extremely clear. If you look at, say, a gun, if game were a gun, well, then attraction is the explosion in the chamber. It's the thing that needs to happen to get the whole thing started. It's the thing that needs to happen to make it work. However, an explosion by itself will not shoot a bullet anywhere. You need that construction of the barrel, you need the proper timing, you need all these other elements to fall into place to make that attraction, that spark, if you will, actually do something.